So there's a science behind all of
Wow, it sounds like a lot of work. This orgasm must be off the charts.
it.
So in Ireland, arses are mostly for jokes, insults, or getting tourists to say, Pogue Mahone. We're not nearly as good at asking what's safe, what's normal, or what might actually feel good. And sure, look, anal won't be everybody's cup of tea, but Dr. Evan Goldstein is here to give us the facts so you can make up your own mind.
I always say gut health before butt health.
I'm Jennifer Zamparelli, and this is Just Between Us. So before things heat up, a little love for our sponsor, Kildare Village. We're all for sparks flying when the curtains are closed. But sure, look, it's no harm to take yourself out for a bit of excitement too. With over 100 boutiques, including 60 you won't find anywhere else in Ireland, a visit to Kildare Village is shopping that's so Irish. And if that wasn't enough, here's something special. We're giving 5 lucky listeners the chance to each win a pair of tickets to an exclusive live recording of the Just Between Us podcast with me, Jennifer Zamparelli, in the beautiful surroundings of Kildare Village. So, you can bring your favourite +1 along for a stylish night out. Head over to independent.ie for your chance to enter, and good luck. So Dr. Evan Goldstein is a New York anal surgeon, founder of Bespoke Surgical and author of But Seriously, the definitive guide to anal health, pleasure and everything in between. Now, he's built a career answering the questions most of us are too embarrassed to ask, with his straight talking advice featured in the likes of Cosmopolitan and GQ and the Washington Post and Men's Health and Forbes and Vice, just to name a few. But I want to first wish you a belated happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, 50. Fuck.
Woo! The big 50. How does it feel?
Oh, it feels great.
It does get better, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's good. This is good. So I'm just excited to be alive.
Okay, well, that's good. Now, I have to say, I read that Martha Stewart is your neighbour.
Yes, she's amazing. It's her birthday. It was her birthday yesterday. So we celebrate birthdays all the time. She's amazing.
That is so cool. But what's more nerve-wracking, having her over for dinner or learning to bottom for the first time? Which one?
Probably the bottoming. She's easy. It's all good. She's just happy to take the hair down and guard down and just be herself. So
lovely.
That's cool.
And when you explain to people like Martha, for example, what you do for a living, what's generally the reaction?
Well, she's amazing. I mean, she's such a supporter of everything that I do. But I mean, I think the reality is a lot of people just don't know. So it's a lot of discussing of, hey, look, this is what, I found a huge need in a community that how do we support people? How do we look at people differently of how do you want to engage sexually and think about all the nuances of that? And the reality is it's very complicated for many people. People want to do certain things, but they can't, or they're not educated, or there's an issue that limits them to have the best sex of their lives. And so the hole that I fill, per se, pun intended, is to get people to where they want to be. You only have one sex life, and why shouldn't you be able to live it the way you want? And
it's amazing that you've written this book, and there's now a lot of young people have information with the internet. The information is there, but years and years ago, I mean, a lot of people were just, I suppose, guessing.
Well, I think, it was interesting. Yes, absolutely guessing, doing and using unsubstantiated methods to clean out, or how do you start to engage? It was kind of like, a rite of passage, but it was a wrong, information as it relates to it.
Even talking about it, when I got the brief into my inbox, there were reservations, and that's my Irish Catholic upbringing as well,
Totally.
And I know a lot of people will want to listen to this, but definitely want to do it alone with the headphones in, going for a walk with their dog in a park. So why are we still so embarrassed to talk about anal?
I think, there's so much shame and stigma. There's so many things surrounding anal play. And I think it's also because of the what would determine, people say, the dirty nature of, where it's a bowel movement component. I think you have to start thinking, and a lot, we talk a lot, but seriously, of looking at this stigma. How do you look at yourself? How do we look at society pressures? And how do we really understand where pleasure is? Stop thinking of sex as being compartmental, oral, vaginal, anal. Let's just think of pleasure. And in that, there's so much pleasure out of anal play. And anal play doesn't have to be full penetration. If people are listening, it could just be external. It could just be foreplay. It doesn't have to be where people are constantly going. I think, especially in European countries, sex is so sex positive, but then there are definitely countries where this is still a huge stigma. And also, if I engage in anal sex, do I have homosexual
Mm-hmm.
tendencies? And in the book, we talk a lot about those myths, but it's real, and whoever's listening, there, it's part of their vernacular, that's for sure.
But why do you think that is? Like, why does enjoying anal stimulation still make some people question their masculinity?
Yeah, I think it's the submissive nature. And I always talk about, people don't need to be submissive to be a bottom. That's also someone's, thought process of like, oh, if you're receiving, you must be submissive. You must be this kind of sissy partner in this
Uh huh.
relationship. That clearly doesn't have to exist. If you want that role, you can. I think it's, religion. I think it's society. I think it's location and family dynamics. But when someone starts to experience prostate stimulation or A spot stimulation or engagement, the orgasms that people have are so heightened. It's how do we block the noise of all of those other things so that you can enjoy anal if you want to?
Billy Porter has spoken about having to actively learn how to bottom.
I'm telling some real personal shit right now. You know, I was what you considered a top, the AIDS crisis. It was like the idea was that if you bottomed, that's how you got it. But by 30, I was ready to be versatile. I had to hire a professional to teach me how to bottom.
Wow.
Don't ask me questions you don't want the answers to, honey.
Do you think, is that still very common to hear?
Yeah, totally. I think bottoming took, especially from an anal sex perspective, took a hiatus during the AIDS crisis, right?
Hmm.
Everybody knew that that was how HIV was being transmitted. So there was a lot of a period where it wasn't happening. And then I came along during a period where HIV is controlled. People are doing anti-HIV medication. And now there's a resurgence of anal sex. But how do we educate people to do it the right way? I mean, I think, a lot of now, thankfully, with things that you're doing, plus Instagram and Facebook and social, people are searching, people are looking, how do I start to bottom and or engage correctly? Parents should be knowing in terms of all sexual natures of how do we talk to our kids and educate. That was a lot of what But Seriously, the book was about, which
Hmm.
was, I have so much knowledge here in the office and a lot of people can't come to New York to see me, but how do we start to kind of have the conversations and teach people? The ass is not overtly very complicated. It's muscle and it's skin. There's three sets of muscles that need to relax. And in many people, those three muscles aren't in unison. They don't listen to each other. So you have to learn how to control that. You have to learn what type of muscle and pelvic floor you have. Or let's say you have a chronic tear, which is called a fissure, or a lot of women post pregnancy have hemorrhoids or skin tags, and you start to engage anally, those can become issues or limitations to allowing you from an anal perspective. So,
Hmm.
understanding anatomy, understanding how it works for you, and then the lead in. People think you can just go from nothing to something big and be able to take it. A lot of people think that. And the reality is you can't, especially women. The skin is so thin in that area that if you do that, will have terrible bottoming experiences as their first experience. And then they'll be like, I'm done. I never want to engage in anal play, and miss all of the potential really upshots of doing anal.
Do we wrongly assume gay men are simply born knowing how it all just works?
Yes, totally. Here at Bespoke Surgical, we've done a study looking at the pelvic floor of so many people, and we've come up with three different groups of what we would say three different groups of assholes. Group number one is people that are basically, like you're saying, born in a way that their pelvic floor can relax so that bottoming is easy or easier. So about a third of people in the world can relax, can open the muscles, can receive correctly with little to no training. But about 75% can't. And that's where a lot of the work on educating and kind of understanding, how do you understand your muscles? How do you understand the pelvic floor and your skin? How do you understand how it's connected to your brain neurologically and psychologically, so that you can actually learn? But most people need to learn the correct techniques. How do you enter correctly? What type of lube? If you're cleaning, how do you clean out the right way? So there is a science to anal sex. And now, instead of hearing what worked for one person, now we know. So it's a cool forefront to be on, because now it's a lot more talked about.
I'm sure you've seen it all in the surgery and, and what you've done. Does shame prohibit people or put people off from coming to you sooner?
Totally. I mean, I think, the last resort that people want to, really look at their own, when be like, God, I'm bleeding out my ass. It's continuing to bleed. I really need to see somebody. It's tough. I think by the time that people come to me, usually they've either seen other people, primary doctors, or they've done enough research to know and say, I'm going to go to someone that has no shame in terms of, from an anal perspective, stigma's gone, less taboo, and come in and just figure out the situation just from a regular quality of life, from pooping
Yeah.
and living your life, to then being able to engage the way you want to.
So is that when people should really get seen to, like, if it's affecting their everyday life, like you said, they're like pooping, for example, or, because we're terrible for just letting things slide and putting things off, aren't we? But when is the red flag? When is it, okay, I need to go see a professional?
I think usually most people, especially we talk a lot about using suppositories or lotions or over the counter stuff wherever people live, for about a week, 3 days, 5 days a week. If things are persisting, I'm bleeding, I'm in pain, it's getting worse. Everything in the body, for the most part, should be getting better with 2 to 3 days of treatment.
Okay.
If it's not, then the earlier you get seen, the quicker we could do things that are non-invasive. The people that wait and it comes and goes and it keeps causing issues, a lot of those people, I need to do surgical approaches because of the chronicity of the issue.
So we would love to hear what you think about Just Between Us. Your feedback helps us make the podcast even better, and it only takes a minute. As a thank you, you'll be entered into a draw to win a €500 One for All voucher. All you have to do is head over to mypodcastfeedback.com and enter the code US. Thanks so much for listening and for helping. So let's talk about what beginners need to know. People are listening to this, they're interested. For someone who is curious but has, absolutely no idea where to begin, what do they need to understand before anything happens?
Yeah, I think understanding that it's a process. Most people that come to the office, it's about an 8-week process to get themselves into good anal play. And I talk a lot about the muscle. I talk a lot about the skin and the connection. The muscles themselves, we spoke of three muscles. The two muscles that are on the outside, let's say all of our listeners, wherever you're listening, squeeze your asshole. Okay, when you squeeze your hole,
We're all
you're
doing it right
squeezing.
now. We're all doing it.
Yeah,
Go.
we're all doing it. You squeeze the first two, which are called the external and the superficial sphincters. The internal sphincter, which is the biggest muscle belly, that's the one that you and I don't really have much control over. That's the one that stays super tight during the day so that you're able to not poop and fart on the street, right? So the concept is, how do we open those muscles to get them to stretch in the right way? And it's just like going to the gym. I say most people, they're doing biceps one day, they're doing triceps the next day to stretch the biceps. When do people ever stretch their asshole? Most people don't, but it's a muscle and it really needs to open and close. Glass dilators are super important to get people stretched in the right way. So most people will start with just the small dilator for 2 weeks. They'll do 2 to 3 sessions a week, just like going to the gym. Give me 2 sets of 10, and that's it. But when you're doing that, what you're doing is you're learning, how is everything connected? You're learning, how do I get those muscles to expand and open? And then you're assessing whether you feel pleasure or not. I don't want any bleeding. I don't want any pain. There's going to be some discomfort in the beginning. But as you gradually progress from size one to size two, always starting with size one, you're starting to see which pelvis do you have, which pleasure zones are there, and you start to kind of get yourself into a good space. So by 6 to 8 weeks, you're basically at the third and fourth dilator, where you can now say, I'm in no pain, I'm not bleeding, I feel sexy and comfortable. And then how do I move into sex to feel more comfortable with my partners? If there's pain, there's bleeding, there's limitations, then we stop, we take a break, try again. If it's persisting, then you need to see somebody.
Wow, it sounds like a lot of work. This orgasm must be off the charts.
For some people, it is work. I mean, the reality is like, and Billy Porter was saying, you have to put the work. Being
Yeah.
a bottom, receiving is work. It's a game. You're trying to play the game. And for many people, it's totally worth it
Yeah.
when they receive in that way. And if your makeup is, I want to receive sexually, then you're going to put the work in because that's what you want.
And I suppose no more work than heterosexual men figuring out how to work the clit.
Yeah, I think it's
That's a lot of
all
work too.
very. It is, and understanding anatomy
Yeah.
and being educated, and not every woman has the same locations, and really being able to read partners. So there's so much to this, even though we're talking anally, there's so much that's applicable all over the place for sex.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to treat it very differently, it sounds to me. You have to approach it very differently. It's not like doing vaginal sex, but in a different location, right? Because
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a very different thing.
Vaginal. Yeah, I think the vaginal side is totally different, right? It self lubricates. It's more cushiony. It doesn't have those muscles to reflexively not allow you to open. So there's lots from an entry perspective that make vaginal play or oral play obviously that much easier. I think the key is for you to understand, one, your own anal opening and how does it work and how do you get to those places that you want. And two is, if you're not receiving and you're giving, how do you enter someone correctly? It's not just shoving it in, right? In the book, we talk a lot about top tips of teaching people, if you are a giver, how do you open up someone comfortably? What is foreplay as it relates to anal play? How do we get those muscles to relax? And how do you understand the architecture so that you're not creating fissures and tearing? Because again, from a top perspective, if you create trauma in that space by just entering someone, not only could you hurt them in that situation, but a lot of times they don't want to engage anally again moving forward. And it really could hamper their life plan.
Okay. How clean does someone realistically need to be?
I think that's totally variable depending upon how someone feels. I think the reality is when we talk of anal dilators, I don't want people to douche and clean out when they're doing toy work. I want them to do it right when they're showering or right before they shower so they can understand that most people are actually cleaner than they think they are. How do you use fiber? How do you use diet and protein? How do you use pre and probiotics? I always say gut health before butt health. So if you're eating correctly and you're pooping like my dog Oreo, where you don't need to clean up after you poop, what happens is the rectum, where we have run of the mill anal sex, is a conduit, meaning stool moves into it. You feel like you need to poop, you poop. Where that is clean for most people. We don't think it is. We have to prove it to people. So when you're doing the toy working, you're able to see that, wow, most of the time I'm really clean. Or if you are going to douche, how do you douche less? We know that douching causes a significant microbiome change in the rectum. It's the same reason why wet wipes create issues externally. It creates an alteration in the microbiome. Well, what happens? Herpes outbreaks, anal warts from HPV, bacterial infection, fungal infection, a higher risk of STDs and HIV from douching. I don't want people to douche. I know that no matter what I say, people are going to douche because they want to be clean. So the key is, how do you do something that doesn't muck with the microbiome? Less liquid. We don't want water. We don't want enemas. I'm not a huge fan of shower hoses or colonics all the time in that space. If you're going to do something, smaller bulbs, less is always more. If you don't need to douche, don't. Prove it to yourself. If you're going to douche, less bulb size, smaller amounts, less times, and use a right solution. And a lot of the stuff that I see globally is with liquids that have preservatives in it. That's the problem. Preservatives create so much trauma internally, and you don't feel it because the sensations inside are not pain and irritating receptors. So a lot of people wouldn't know that they're fucking with the insides,
Yeah.
other than I keep having STD issues or risks, etc. So a long-winded answer, but it's relevant to what people are doing.
And I suppose the same goes for lubricants and toys and whatever you're
Totally.
using to get to that stage or whatever. They need to be body safe, right?
Totally body safe. I'm a huge fan of silicone-based lubricants more than water-based. I know people love water-based because it's easier to clean off than silicone. But I think the key is what works for you, how do we support it, and how do you mitigate as much risk as you possibly can?
Okay. So how should anal feel and what is your body telling you when it's time to stop?
So it should feel pleasurable, right? In the
Mhm.
beginning stages, some people have discomfort as they're opening. There shouldn't be pain. There shouldn't be bleeding, okay, in any way, shape, or form. If you want to seek out pain because that gets you off, that's a whole different beast. But in this, there shouldn't be that. It should be pleasurable. That's where the toy stuff and the dilating is so important because you could really do it on your own, explore your own body, understand your pelvis, and really start to figure out, well, what gets you off and what doesn't. Certain positions may get you off and others don't. Certain angles may hit the prostate in a way that doesn't feel good. How do you understand the right way to maneuver? But there are plenty of people through anal play that have the greatest orgasms by stimulating the prostate or the A spot directly, which then leads people to even hands-free orgasms as it relates to it. So it should be pleasurable.
Can you explain the A spot?
Yeah. So where the prostate is about 5 to 7 centimeters inside. So inside those three muscles, if you're going in another 3 to 5 centimeters towards the front, so towards the penis, towards the testicle area, is the prostate. It's like the size of a walnut. In people born without prostates, there's still so many nerve endings in that space. That's what's called the A spot. Now, in people without a prostate, is it translational sensation, meaning is it touching the vagina and the cervix and the posterior clitoris in a different location that allows those positive sensations? Probably, for sure, but there is a concentration of nerve endings that are so powerful where the prostate would have lied, and that's the A spot.
Okay. Never knew that. Thank you for that. Can you describe or explain what the aftercare looks like?
Yeah. So I think just from a general hygiene perspective, most people don't douche after. There are some people that do because they feel as if it just cleans them after the routine. With that, less is always more. Most people are showering, just cleaning externally and clean with soap and water. And that's basically it. There are suppositories, there are creams, there are certain things that people can do if there's irritation or pain or some issues with post-bottoming, like you would with if you're having bowel movements that are irritating. But the reality is that, just clean yourself and shower just like you normally would, and just pay attention to making sure the poops are soft and easy and just like a normal daily routine.
Okay. And if somebody is listening to this who is a novice and wants to try whatever, how many goes would you say it'll take them to get there?
I would say, look, you're always going to become different experts as you're progressing. I think we don't know what size the penis is that's coming through the door sometimes. We don't know what skill they have. So you're always going to learn. But most people by the 6 to 8 week mark of using toys are really able to navigate correctly. But it should be a positive. I know you make it out to
Fun.
seem like it's a process, and it is, but it should be fun, and it
Yeah.
should be an exploration, and it should be allowing you to really understand. I don't think we do enough of self play and self care and understanding ourselves as we're going through it. So I don't want it to feel like an arduous task. It shouldn't be that. But when people are starting into this, they're starting to be positive and have positive vibes and be like, oh my God, this does really feel better. I am having better orgasms, where it creates this cycle where people want to do it more.
And I suppose communication with your partner or whoever you're doing it with is key. I mean, how much do they know about the ass? Do they
Totally.
know where they're going and what they're doing? That'd be the first thing I'd be asking,
Totally, 100%. And I think that that's where we talk a lot about in the book also of going into sex from the dilating work. The first position is for you to be on top, facing your partner. And it's not like getting into crazy sex the first couple of times. It's communicating, it's getting them erect and hard, and you're on top and in control, and then slowly starting to maneuver so that you guys can get to where you want to be. And I don't want it to be medical for so long, right? We want it to just be fun and spontaneous and playing. And we go over a lot of those steps to get you there, but it is work.
Yeah. Where can people find reliable information from you if they want to find out more?
Yeah, so through me, it's Dr. Evan Goldstein on Instagram and Facebook. My practice is called Bespoke Surgical on all handles. And then also But Seriously is everywhere, even where you guys are.
You got to read it. It's amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been
thank you.
amazing. Thank you, love. Mwah.
Cheers.
Tell Martha I said hi.
I will.
Right, that's all for this week. I'm Jennifer Zamparelli, and thanks for listening to Just Between Us. If you love the podcast, please take a minute and leave us a review. Today's episode was produced by John Byrne, recorded by Alan Kelly, with sound design by John Smith.
We want to earn your trust and are members of the Trust Project. See our ethics policies at independent.ie/our journalism.